has been a year already since the Mazda CX-90 has been out. And I've already reviewed them a couple times, but this is the first time that I'm ever reviewing a Turbo S CX-90. Now, let's go see what is the difference that you get with the CX-90 Turbo S comparing to the rest of the lineup. You're watching General Cars. This is the 2024 Mazda CX-90. Let's get straight to it. Right, so I have done a CX-90 before. I've actually had a couple of them already. You have the PHEV model that I've done, and you also have the turbo model that I've done before. However, it is a new year, and I have never done a Turbo S. And there are a couple minuscule differences with the Turbo S that you don't get with the PHEV nor the regular turbo. So let's talk about it. For one, the materials in here feel a little bit different. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the materials are just outstandingly like high quality and everything like that. It does have a few plastics here and there, but there's a lot more leather around that you will notice, and soft padding plastics around that just makes the interior feel a little bit more premium. Now, what you also do get is you do have a full 360 camera that's all around the CX-90. It is a really good camera. It does have really good high resolutions. You also do have a mode where you can kind of see the outside of the body a little bit and stuff. It's great. You know, it's a pretty good little camera for what it is. It does also have front and back sensors, so it does make this car easier to park. And reason being is this is a pretty big SUV. We're going to talk about the space that you get in the inside as well as the exterior. It is a pretty big exterior that you get with the CX-90. Now, we're going to talk about with the rest of the interior. You do have a couple packages that you get with the Turbo S. Obviously, you do have the Premium, and then you have the Premium Plus package. The Premium Plus obviously comes with heated, cooled seats, heated steering wheel. It comes with all of that. This one isn't the Premium Plus. This one just has heated seats and a heated steering wheel. Does not come with cooled seats for some reason. But outside of that, it does feel really nice in here. What you also do have in the steering wheel, you do actually have an electric tilt and telescopic steering wheel. That is only exclusive to the Turbo S model to make it more premium. So this is basically Mazda's real first take of actually making a premium SUV that can start rivaling against a BMW, an Audi, especially with the engine, since this one also has the high output inline six, which we'll get into later. So this is a really big deal that Mazda has made, and I will genuinely say this is a great SUV, and the interior is really, really nice. I love the design of it. The materials may not feel like a BMW per se. Mazda still has a lot of work to go into that, but Mazda has made a lot of effort inside of this interior that I cannot say it's crap. It's really, really good, and I'm genuinely impressed at how far Mazda has come from when they used to be partnered up with Ford and their interiors were absolute garbage to now we have this. And I will say the interiors in here feel I prefer this interior a lot more than the Ford Explorer per se. The Ford Explorer, it feels a lot cheaper, a lot more cheaper inside than the Mazdas, and that is a big thing. Now, when it comes to talking about with storage and everything else, just to make this quick, storage is not going to be as great as per se maybe you get in a Honda Pilot or a Toyota Highlander. So if storage capacity is something you are concerned about, that is something that you're going to have to really identify if you really would get a CX-90, or you're going to have to look somewhere else in the competition. Now, let's talk about the space that you get in the back seat. Right, so now as we're sitting in the back seat of the CX-90, this is, mind you, the second row seats. Since this is obviously a 3-row SUV, you're going to also have a third row. There is a little bit of space that you do get. Now, since I do have the seats pretty much almost nearly back, now I have it all the way back, I do at least have about a ½ inch of legroom just between my knees if I were to fold my legs in. So it does have enough space for a full-size adult in the back room, but it's not going to be as ginormous as other SUVs. I've sat in a Honda Pilot. I do have more than an inch of legroom in there. So if space, like I said, is a big concern that you have, this being a rear-wheel drive bias platform is going to be a little bit limited. You also don't have a flat floor in the CX-90 because of this having a rear drive shaft. So that's another thing. So what you do have is these captain chairs, which I will say they are relatively comfortable. They're really great. And the bigger benefit of that is you can recline these seats at a decent pace, at a decent rate. So for here, I can sit fine. I can sit perfectly comfortable. You also do have these pets and blockers right here in the back. That makes it great. But when we're talking about the third row does have a lot more or less space. So that is one thing that I will say that is a lot more recommended for smaller children, not for little grown adults. I barely could fit it back there, and it is a struggle for me to get in and out of the third row. That is something that I would recommend for smaller adults. Now, we're going to talk about the trunk space, and we're going to also talk about the engine just for a little bit, since this is the high output inline six. Let's get to it.
Trunk space in the CX-90 is pretty decent, but comparing to other 3-row SUVs, it's not going to be the best or class leading per se. So with the third row seats up, you're going to have 16 cubic feet of space, and when you decide to put all the seats down, you can jump all the way to 75 cubic feet of space, which is quite cavernous for any type of SUV, or let alone any vehicle. Obviously, there's SUVs out there that are a little bit more, but it's up to you. And under the hood is going to be a 3.3 liter inline six turbo. Now, this is Mazda's all new inline six turbo that they unveiled last year. And obviously it's been out for already pretty much a year. This one is being the high output one. It produces 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So respectable numbers. And when it comes to the turbo noises, sounds absolutely magical. Now, let's get to driving.
Alright, we're gonna let this annoying trunk go away. We are about to begin this drive. Now, I have driven quite a few CX-90s before, and I will be honest with you. They're great, but they are a little bit stiffer than most of the competitors. I have driven Pilots, not the new one, but I've driven an older Pilot, the last generation Pilot, and that thing is really smooth. And I will say it rides a lot better than this particular model, than this particular SUV. I'm not gonna sit here and say that it handles better than the CX-90, because Mazda was trying to focus on having a driving spirit with the CX-90. And they did a great job of that, except it's not the best riding SUV. And when you're buying something like this, you want something to ride good and you want it to be a great highway getter. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's so brutal that you cannot handle this on the highway and stuff. It's perfectly adequate to handle a highway. It's perfectly adequate to handle anything. But you're going to notice that it is a little bit more rough in the riding segment comparing to other competitors. That is the one thing that I will say and point out there. And since obviously this is a rear-wheel drive bias SUV, it is going to be a lot more fun to drive. And that is one thing that I will say, driving this thing compared to other SUVs like the Highlander or a Pilot, you're going to have a much more of a smile to your face when you're driving a CX-90 comparing to the Highlander or even a Pilot. But that's really where everything ends. The driving dynamics of this car is absolutely phenomenal. And pretty much the visibility after that is really good. You do have really good visibility all around the vehicle. The windows are really wide, they're really open around, and it's relatively quiet in the inside of the cabin. Now, when we're talking about the inline six, this obviously does make more power than the normal turbo, and it does have an interesting noise. Now, you're gonna obviously hear the inline six, but then as you accelerate, well, after this turn, I'm gonna just do a small acceleration pull, you're gonna hear a lot of ambient noise. And this is something that I'm not a true fan of with the CX-90, but as I'm turning, it's a lot of augmented noise that you get inside the cabin as you're doing a Hall acceleration. It doesn't sound terrible. I've heard so much worse, but it's something that for an inline six, it shouldn't have it. And I feel like if Mazda didn't add that augmented noise in the inside of the cabin, I think this car would have sounded better, in my opinion. And genuinely, this inline six sounds really good. I've heard it before without the augmented noise, and you can even rev it out and stuff. It sounds so freaking good. And for me, I think the augmented noise is unnecessary. But I'm sure there's a way to delete that. I'm sure there's a way that you could kind of finagle with that and try to see if you can take it out and stuff, and you can actually enjoy the natural noise of the inline six. It's not, they did it because if it's not going to sound, it sounds a little bit more refined and everything like that. But in the end of the day, just take it out, Mazda, at this point. But anyways, talking about the rest of it, in terms of miles per gallon, it is going to be a tad worse than the normal turbo. And another thing too, you do have to put premium fuel in this thing, so it is going to cost you more to run a Turbo S comparing to the normal turbo. So that's one thing to keep in mind of. Outside of that, you really are not going to have much of a complaint. This thing could get close to 30 miles a gallon on the highway, and especially if you do not drive like an absolute dickhead, you are going to have a lot better MPG. Of course, I really can't determine what is the MPG in this car. Currently, this is just a little demo vehicle that I'm driving for just today, and I've been averaging literally 8 miles a gallon. But that's just because the car has been sitting, I've been filming, and I've been just driving it around for just a block or more, and that's about it. So I cannot tell you how really is the MPG real world. You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself, or you're gonna have to watch this video to see how it really is the MPG. But I've heard a lot of good reviews in terms of the miles a gallon that you get in these 90s, and it's really good. Surprisingly, unbelievable, right? So the all-wheel drive system also is really good. It handles really well, and this being a rear-wheel drive bias all-wheel drive system, this is something new that Mazda's done for the first time in their lives. It is a really good system. I cannot sit here and deny that it is bad, because it's not. It is really good. And as we're going over a speed bump, this is what I'm going to talk about by at least the stiffness. I'm going to just slow it down a little bit. It is a little bumpy, and that's the only gripe that I could say about the CX-90 that could just give you a little bit of a gripe if that's something that you don't want. But if it's something that you don't really care about, you really just want the nicer looking interior, you want an interior that feels more special than the Toyotas, that feels a lot more special than the Hondas, and it also has an engine that is so unique to the segment, I'll be honest with you, you really cannot complain. I genuinely really have liked this car a lot. Granted, it is not the best SUV in the world in terms of space, in terms of utility and everything like that, but just as an SUV in total, this is the one that I will buy myself. And it's just because it has a great spirit and a lot more of a living personality than any of the other SUVs out there. Of course, not everyone's going to care about that, and really generally the main customer that's going to buy an SUV, that's going to buy a 3-row SUV, they're not going to care. Generally speaking, they're not going to care. But if it's something that you just try to peep, or you just want an inline 6, or you generally just want a more premium style SUV, this is a great take. So that's all I'm going to say about the Turbo S CX-90. I really do like the Turbo S model. Obviously, if you want all the features, all the nice features, including like your rear heated and cooled seats that you get in the back, as well as your cooled seats in the front, you're going to have to get the Premium Plus package, and that's going to be a little bit of money. So as I'm going to close this video, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel so I can keep going on with this and grow as a new channel. Take care.